Can I join the Deputy Prime Minister in paying tribute to the bravery of Sir Chris Hoy? He truly is an inspiration to us all. And I also echo her comments about the train crash in Powers. Mr. Speaker, what is the Deputy Prime Minister's definition of working people?
Angela Rayner, the UK's Deputy Prime Minister, just found herself in boiling water, and it all started with a trip that most of us could only dream of. A stay in a $2.5 million New York apartment with a view of the Empire State Building, courtesy of a Labour peer. But what was meant to be a casual holiday has now spiralled into a full-blown scandal with accusations of hidden perks, privileges, and even a formal investigation. Could this be the final spark that unravels Rayner's career?
That went to take forward that process.
Deirdre Costigan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What impact does the Secretary of State think the UK leaving the European Convention on Human Rights would have on the sustainability of Northern Ireland's finances and devolved government?
Well, the apartment wasn't just any old rental. It was a luxurious pad owned by Lord Ali, a Labour peer with deep ties to Rayner's party. Nestled right in the heart of New York, with stunning views of the iconic Empire State Building, this place isn't your average Airbnb. It's the kind of high-end real estate that people only dream about. Imagine a plush apartment with all the modern bells and whistles, the kind of place where you can practically feel the pulse of the city from your window. And the best part? Rayner stayed there in the house, thanks to her connection with Lord Ali, sparking a media storm back in the UK.
Can I join the Deputy Prime Minister in paying tribute to the bravery of Sir Chris Hoy? He truly is an inspiration to us all. And I also echo her comments about the train crash in Powers. Mr. Speaker, what is the Deputy Prime Minister's definition of working people?
In most cases, friends lending each other places to stay wouldn't raise an eyebrow. But when you're the Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, things aren't so simple. The issue here isn't just about the trip itself, but about what it represents and the questions it raises. When a politician accepts a stay in such a prime piece of real estate, it's bound to stir suspicion, especially given the existing political ties between Rayner and Lord Ali. People can't help but wonder, is there more to this than a friendly gesture? Is it a perk that comes with being in a powerful position? The UK public expects high-ranking officials like Rayner to act with absolute transparency, particularly when accepting anything that could be considered a gift from someone with political influence. It's part of the deal when you're a politician. You're held to a higher standard, and rightfully so.
The charge she makes is that the people she names are somehow on the take. That's the charge she's making here today on the floor of the House. That they have been focused not...
The main allegation here is that Rayner failed to declare the trip, a crucial step for transparency. In UK politics, there are strict rules requiring MPs to disclose any significant gifts or perks they receive, especially from donors or figures connected to their political party. This isn't just a formality, it's meant to avoid any conflict of interest or perception that politicians are gaining personal perks because of their office. But Rayner's trip went unreported, and that's where the trouble starts. By not declaring her stay, Rayner has sparked questions about whether she was trying to keep the trip under wraps, something that looks even more suspicious given the luxurious nature of the apartment and its well-connected owner. The public reaction has been swift and intense, with many seeing this as yet another example of the political elite playing by their own set of rules. This isn't just about one person's holiday anymore. It's become a symbol of the wider frustrations people have with political transparency and accountability. Angela Rayner's holiday might have seemed like a private affair, but in the world of UK politics, transparency laws mean there's no such thing as a truly personal gift or perk for an MP. The House of Commons Code of Conduct is clear when it comes to what needs to be declared by MPs, especially those holding influential positions. Gifts, donations and stays at places that could be considered valuable must be declared if they exceed a certain value. The rule isn't complicated. It's there to protect both MPs and the public. It's all about keeping things above board, and ensuring that politicians can't be seen as being unduly influenced by donors or other parties, especially those with vested interests. For high-ranking officials like Rayneer, the bar is set even higher since they are expected to act as role models for accountability and transparency.
People, the crashing of the economy and the disaster that he left behind.
Well, she mentions her policy. Let's be clear, it's a £5 billion hit to the British economy, and that's her own assessment.
The point of these rules is simple public trust. People want to believe that their politicians are acting in the best interest of the country, not in pursuit of personal perks. If MPs start accepting gifts or staying in luxurious accommodations without declaring them, it creates a perception of impropriety, of favours being exchanged behind closed doors. Transparency helps avoid these situations by bringing everything out into the open, making it clear if there's even a whiff of a conflict of interest. The UK has seen its fair share of political scandals over the years, many rooted in undeclared gifts or perks. These situations have fueled scepticism about politicians and made the public more watchful. In Rayneer's case, the public's reaction wasn't just about one undeclared trip, it was about a fear that politicians are playing by their own set of rules, distancing themselves from the very people they claim to serve. Angela Rayneer has been quick to respond to the backlash, insisting that her stay in the upscale New York apartment was simply a personal trip and didn't require any official declaration. According to her, this wasn't some elaborate scheme or political manoeuvre, but rather a friendly arrangement. Rayneer argued that staying in the apartment of a long-time Labour peer, Lord Ali was no different than visiting a friend's holiday home. A casual visit that didn't warrant formal paperwork. In her eyes, the media frenzy surrounding this trip has been blown completely out of proportion, adding that donations and friendly gifts are a long-standing aspect of British politics. Rayneer's tone has been straightforward and unapologetic, suggesting that she feels this whole incident is much ado about nothing. Rayneer also pointed out that politicians across the UK have accepted gifts, stays and donations for years, hinting that her actions were nothing out of the ordinary. According to her, Labour and Conservative MPs alike have received accommodations, clothing and other perks over the years, implying that her critics are selectively targeting her while ignoring similar behaviours by others. By framing her trip as routine and harmless, she's trying to reassure the public that there's nothing sinister or secretive behind her stay in Lord Ali's apartment. She also emphasised that UK politicians aren't strangers to these kinds of friendly exchanges, almost as if to suggest that critics are conveniently forgetting this context to make her the focus of a much bigger issue.
Of them crashing the economy, sending interest rates scoring, I think he needs to learn his own lessons in opposition.
Well, I think the whole House will have heard the Deputy Prime Minister disregard.
But does Rayneer's defence hold water? That's where things get murky. Many people feel that whether or not her stay was technically within the rules, it doesn't sit right. In politics, optics matter just as much as reality, and a high-ranking MP staying in a luxurious New York apartment during a time of economic strain at home is bound to rub some people the wrong way. Rayneer may have followed her interpretation of the rules, but the way the public sees it is another story entirely. From a public perspective, it doesn't help that she's linked with Labour, a party that often positions itself as a champion of working-class values. Her stay in a lavish Manhattan apartment gifted by a Labour peer clashes with the party's image. For many, this isn't just about whether Rayneer bent or broke the rules, but about how out of touch it makes her seem. People are frustrated by what they see as a classic example of a politician benefiting from elite connections, and no amount of explanation can fully smooth over that perception.
As working people to her. Now, Labour gave a clear commitment not to raise national insurance. The independent IFS have given their view on this. They say that raising employer...
The Conservatives wasted no time in seizing on this opportunity to go after Angela Rayner and the Labour Party. For them, this situation was almost too good to be true. A Labour Deputy Prime Minister staying in a luxury apartment owned by a Labour peer without declaring it. Conservatives saw this as a prime example of hypocrisy and potential misuse of influence, an issue that they argue isn't just about Rayner, but a broader pattern within the Labour Party. They quickly demanded an official investigation, submitting a formal request to the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner to look into whether Rayner violated any rules by failing to declare the stay. This wasn't just a political jab, it was a calculated move to cast doubt on Labour's credibility, particularly at a time when public trust in politicians is fragile. From the Conservative perspective, this situation perfectly highlights what they see as a double standard within Labour. Labour has often criticised the Tories for being out of touch with ordinary people, yet here's one of their top leaders enjoying a lavish, free holiday while claiming to represent the working class. Conservatives are framing this as a moment of hypocrisy, one of Labour's high-ranking figures benefiting from elite connections while the party claims to stand against such privileges. By pushing for a formal investigation, they're trying to paint Rayner and, by extension, Labour as out of touch with the very people they claim to champion. To add fuel to the fire, the Conservatives are pointing to Labour's recent controversies involving other donations and gifts, suggesting that this is part of a larger issue within the party. In pushing for this investigation, the Conservatives are also tapping into a larger sense of frustration with politics in general. People are tired of scandals and want accountability, and this investigation allows the Conservatives to position themselves as the party that's serious about transparency and holding everyone, even high-profile MPs, accountable. Whether or not the investigation turns up any rule-breaking, the very act of calling for it strengthens the Conservative message that Labour can't be trusted with power if they're engaging in what they see as elitist behaviour behind the scenes. For Rayner, this investigation is a big problem because it keeps the spotlight on her actions and Labour's potential internal issues, magnifying a situation that might otherwise have faded away. The Conservatives know this, and by keeping up the pressure, they're hoping to turn this scandal into a long-term political weapon against Labour. The timing of Angela Rayner's luxury stay couldn't be worse, given the current economic climate in the UK. With a cost of living crisis affecting families across the country, Rayner's choice to accept a stay in a $2.5 million New York apartment doesn't just come across as a simple oversight, it feels like a slap in the face to people struggling to make ends meet. Families are dealing with soaring energy bills, rising grocery prices, and overall financial strain. And here's a politician, supposedly a champion of the working class, living it up in Manhattan. For many people, this doesn't just seem out of touch, it feels like a betrayal. Rayner may see this as a harmless personal trip, but for everyday people, it highlights a perceived disconnect between politicians and the public they're meant to serve.
The Commonwealth is very important, and that's why the King and the Prime Minister at the moment are working together. Thank you.
Well, I thank the Right Honourable Lady for that answer. Our Commonwealth family is brought together by historical...
The frustration goes beyond Rayner herself. Labour, as a party, has long branded itself as the voice of the working class, the party that understands the struggles of ordinary citizens. Yet stories like this one make it increasingly difficult for people to buy that message. How can a party that says it stands for the underdog have one of its leaders accepting such luxurious perks? It's a fair question, and one that a lot of people are asking as they watch this scandal unfold. The optics are terrible for Labour, and the contrast between Rayner's actions and the financial hardship faced by the public only intensifies the criticism. This scandal isn't just about one person's decision, but about the broader question of how genuine Labour's commitment to the working class is.
These are the publicans, the shopkeepers, the family running a local cafe. None of those count as working people to her. Now, Labour gave a clear commitment.
This public outrage has serious implications for Rayneer's career and Labour's image. Rayneer, who has often spoken out against privileges and elitism, is now in a position where she looks like she's benefiting from those very things. People notice this, and it damages her credibility as a political figure who claims to stand for the common person. In a time when political trust is already low, moments like these can be devastating, and it doesn't help that Labour has been under scrutiny recently for other controversies around donations and gifts. This scandal only adds fuel to the fire and makes it easier for people to believe that Labour is just as disconnected from the everyday person as any other party.